Good afternoon. The View at Noon begins a new schedule starting today. We will have devotions on Monday and Friday only, and thank you for joining me today. Our Bible verses for today are about love, L-O-V-E. Let all that you do be done in love, 1 Corinthians 16:14. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life, John 3:16. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. 1 Peter 4:8. A new commandment I give to you, that you are to love one another, just as I have loved you. You are also to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. John 13:34 and 35. And lastly, so now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love. 1 Corinthians 13:13. I love to read, and I've been sharing over the past few weeks a few of my favorite Christian authors. And today, we want to look at the New York Times bestseller, The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. And he presents a simple truth that our relationships are better when we understand each other, and everyone gives and receives love differently. But with a little insight to those differences, we can be better equipped to communicate love well. And this is true for all kinds of relationships, for married couples, dating couples, children, teenagers, friends and co-workers, for long-distance relationships, for those that have a brand new love, and for those romances that are older than the hills. So today we're going to talk about 5 basic love languages, 5 ways to express your love emotionally. Each person has a primary love language that we must learn to speak if we want that person to feel like we love them. And the first love language we want to talk about today is called words of affirmation. Dr. Chapman tells a story about a time that he was at he and his wife were visiting his daughter and their son-in-law and their grandchildren. And after they had finished the meal, the son-in-law gets up and takes the garbage out after dinner. And when he walked back into the room while they were talking with their daughter, his daughter looked up and said to her husband, "John, thanks for taking the garbage out." And inside, Dr. Chapman kind of, smiled and thought to himself, yes, because he knew from his years of study that the power of appreciation of our words. So if your spouse's primary love language is words of affirmation, your spoken praise and appreciation will fall like rain on parched soil. People that like or feed off of words of affirmation, they get happiness from hearing nice words. This way of expressing love includes love letters. And if one of your love languages is words of affirmation, you like to encourage people with your speech. Words have incredible power. They leave a mark on our behavior. Even if we're speaking the words and it only takes us seconds, they leave a mark. We must realize the power we have through words of affirmation. Our second love language is acts of service. Do you remember the old saying, actions speak louder than words? Well, for some people that's particularly true in love. If acts of service is your spouse's primary love language, nothing speaks more deeply to him than simple acts of service. Dr. Chapman tells a story about a lady named Maxine. She'd been married for about 15 years. And she came to his office one day and said she was frustrated with her marriage. She said, "I don't understand David. Every day he tells me that he loves me, but he never does anything to help me. He just sits on the couch watching TV while I wash dishes, and the thought never crosses his mind to help me." Maxine said, "I'm tired of hearing I love you, because if he loved me, he would do something to help me." So Maxine's primary love language was acts of service, not words of affirmation. And even though her husband, David, loved her, he had never learned to express his love in a way that made her feel loved. However, after David and Dr. Chapman talked, and he read and knew about the 5 love languages, David got the picture. and he started speaking Maxine's love language. And in less than a month, her love tank was beginning to fill up, and their marriage moved from winter to spring. Our third love language is receiving gifts. In every society throughout history, gift giving has been perceived as an expression of love. Giving gifts is universal because there's something inside the human psyche that says if you love someone, you will give to him or to her. What many people don't understand is that for some people, receiving gifts is their primary love language. It's the thing that makes them feel loved most deeply. If you're married to someone whose primary love language is gift giving, you will make your spouse feel loved and treasured by giving gifts on a birthday, a holiday, an anniversary, and even a no occasion day. The gifts don't have to be expensive or elaborate. It's the thought that counts. Even something as simple as a homemade card or a few flowers will communicate your love to your spouse. Little things mean a lot to a person whose primary love language is receiving gifts. Number 4, let's talk about quality time. If your spouse's love language is quality time, giving him or her your undivided attention is one of the best ways you can show them love. Your spouse needs you to listen and to interact. To your spouse, 20 minutes of undivided attention where you listen and talk with them is like a 20-minute refill of his or her love tank. We should find quality time in our busy schedule to be with a person in both body and mind. What you do together doesn't really matter, but what matters is the person you're spending the time with. And lastly, let's talk about physical touch, the 5th love language. We've known for a long time the emotional power of touch, physical touch. That's why when we pick up a baby and we love on them tenderly, long before we can, the infant understands the meaning of love, they know our love by the way that we touch them. They feel loved by our physical touch. Physical contact is one of the simplest love languages, and it doesn't require any words. People who prefer this love language enjoy touch and hugs. They feel comforted in the arms of others or by holding hands. Youngsters, when this is one of their primary love languages, love to feel comforted by being held or carried. Today, I've got the examples of the love languages, but also a way that you connect. If you want to Google, you can Google 5lovelanguages.com/quizzes. And today's challenge is you take the quiz and then have someone else that you know, whether it's your spouse or a friend, go and take that same quiz to see what their love language is. You can also Google the 5 love languages teenagers and find a quiz that they can take as a teenager so you know that you're loving them in the way that they benefit most. In closing, we need to just remember that we need to love God and to love people. 1 John 4:19 says, we love because he first loved us. Thank you for joining me today and hope you have a great afternoon.